Hey everybody, it's Caelin from Draft Studios here. Today I'm going to be running you guys through a shoot that I'm doing on a white backdrop, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up white backdrop, how to light it, and the post-processing too, how to get them looking perfect so you can put them inside an online shop or put them on a print document and make it look as the background is seamless with the paper. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is backdrops. There's a few different types of backdrops out there. There's a muslin backdrop, which is probably the most common, and that's a thin fabric. I actually do not like muslin that much because it wrinkles very easily and you cannot iron it. You have to steam it, which is kind of a pain in the butt when you have a big backdrop and you're trying to steam it out. On the plus side, it's very cheap and it does well with damage over time, and it's very tear resistant and dirty resistant, I guess. The second main type of backdrop that people use are paper backdrops, and those are basically just big sheets of paper, and those are actually pretty nice because they don't wrinkle, so you don't have to steam them or iron them, but at the same time they will rip or tear very easily, which means that you cannot have people walking on them a lot. So that'd be good if you have an indoor studio or something where you aren't having people walking on it and you're just doing products and such. But besides that, I would not recommend going with paper. Now my favorite type of backdrop is this canvas stuff right here. So this is actually meant for curtains. So I got this at Joann's. It wasn't that expensive for this big roll. My only gripe with it is probably the fact that it doesn't come in very long sheets. And you'll see that become a problem if you're taking photos of people in it and you really need to fill the frame in the back with a white backdrop. And you can always do it in post if you want to add more, but it's just easier to get it all when you're taking a photo and you want a nice big wide backdrop, which you might not be able to get with this curtain substance. However, today we'll be doing product shots, and this is perfect for it because it doesn't wrinkle up so I don't have to steam it, and it's not too large for my needs as well. Besides just backdrops and having to buy your own lights and everything separate, they also have what are called photography cubes, and they're basically completely lit like canvas squares. And they have lights built into them, or you can shine lights on the outside and it'll light everything inside of it perfectly and it'll be nice and clean. At the same time, those are going to be more expensive than if you buy everything separate, and I don't like them as much because they don't offer me as much space. The cubes don't come in giant sizes, so I couldn't take portraits or people shots in them, which is why I prefer having everything separate and using a canvas backdrop here, getting some light stands to hold my lights and the backdrop, and just having everything separate. It's cheaper, and in my opinion it's a lot easier to manipulate and move your lights around. So the first thing that we're going to do here is find somewhere to put this big backdrop. As I said before, I'm taking pictures of these very small, they're like necklaces, so I don't actually need this whole thing, but I don't have a smaller backdrop on hand, so we're going to go find somewhere to set this up, and then I'll be talking to you guys about lights and then camera settings. Let's go. The main thing that you need to be keeping in mind when you're setting up your backdrop is to make sure that you have enough space in the back so you can be taking photos with a longer focal length. The thing with wide focal lengths, like 18mm or 24, is that you may get some slight distortion, which does not look very good when you're doing white backdrop photos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set this up on the ground. I have my desk right here, and I'm just going to drape the backdrop on top of the desk and put it on the ground. And I have a little bit of space in the back, so I can probably get in with my 50mm and get some shots. I'm just going to time lapse myself setting this thing up, and we'll go. Okay, so that was pretty quick, the setup time, and I basically just put the roll on top, just drape the fabric down. So my fabric's a little bit wrinkled right now because I kind of abuse it and I don't treat it very well. But if you make sure to roll it correctly and not store it in a crappy place like I do, you won't get those wrinkles. But the good thing is when you light it, a lot of the wrinkles won't be showing up in the background if you light the background correctly. So that's it for the setup of the backdrop. Let's get into lighting. Now for lighting, I use these big LED lights. However, you can also use just normal table lights or fluorescent lamps if they're bright enough to light the background. I'll link you guys the lights that I have in the background. They cost me $60 each, and I bought 2 of them along with light stands, but they're very, very bright, which is really good when you're lighting backdrops. So let's get into lighting the background. The first thing that you're going to need to do is get at least one light in the back to light the actual white part. That ensures that the background will be blown out or overexposed in your photo, which means that it'll be a very, very clean, clear white. The next thing that you need to do is make sure that the front of your photo is properly exposed. That means maybe getting a key light or just 2 lights set up so it's evenly lit. That's the most important thing when you're taking white backdrop photos, to make sure that your subject is evenly lit so it doesn't look like there's any like strong light source coming from one side. So these are the lights that I use, these big LED panels. They have battery slots on the back or space for an AC adapter. These are actually really nice lights, and I'll be doing a review for them. And they also come with a diffuser. When lighting your subject, especially with white backdrop, as I was saying before, you need to make sure that your subject is evenly lit. That means not using harsh light and using a diffuser, such as this one, or like a big umbrella if you're using fluorescent lights, to ensure that there will be no harsh shadows. If you're using a small lamp or some non-photography type light source, then I'd recommend just using a piece of paper and bouncing it off the piece of paper, or using some bakery paper or some sort of like opaque paper and just taping that in front of the light bulb so that the light that comes out will be diffused and not create harsh shadows. So as I was saying, the next thing that we need to do is get the light set up. So I have two light stands, or actually I have more than two light stands, but the two light stands I like using are these pretty expensive $15 light stands. They're very sturdy, which is why I use them, and I actually trust them with my gear, unlike some of the cheaper ones that come with kits. So here they are. There's one of them, so you can see that, and my second one right over here. So I'm going to set those up right here, and they're going to be lighting my backdrop right here. As well, I have this big light tube, I guess. I mean, they're LEDs, not fluorescents, but this big light thing right here, which casts some light onto the background itself, which will hopefully ensure that it's overexposed. Now, if that's not enough, I might be moving the light stands here towards the back more so I can light the background correctly. And if that's still not enough light, I also have these two larger, like giant light bulbs, and I have some umbrella lamps for those as well. So I'm just gonna set up the lights on the LED lights, that is, on these two, and we're gonna light that and we're gonna see how it looks. Okay, so right now I'm just using the lights themselves, so they don't have any diffusers on them, and this is just at full blast, and as you can see, the background is completely blown out. But that's not what I want, because if I use these strong lights, when it hits my subject, it's going to cast some harsh shadows in the background, which I do not want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some diffusers on these, and I'm going to place them higher up and tilt them down a lot more so that it evenly lights my background and my subject. Okay, so all I did next was I turned off this light up here because it's casting some shadows on the backdrop. I moved the lights up a lot, and I put on the diffuser, which you can kind of see there. And this is a lot more well lit. So if I turn down, turn down the brightness, you can see there's some slight shadows in the back, right here, and like on that, and on that side from the wrinkles. That's fine. Okay, so I just knocked it over again. But as I was saying, there's still some slight wrinkles on the side, but when you're actually taking the photo, these will all be completely blown out. And if I turn off this front light a little bit, that should help, and more evenly light the subject. So this looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna add in one big light up here. And you might be saying right now, wow, this is a lot of work for just lighting a subject on a white background. But if you get this wrong and you don't set up all the lights, it's gonna end up looking really, really bad. And that's what you don't want to do. So it's a lot of work, but in the end, it gets the perfect shot. Okay, so all I did was I added in my light right here, this big lamp. And you'll see it actually makes a really, really big difference in how the scene looks. So let's turn you over here, and if I, oh my god, it's way too bright. I'll stomp down a little bit. It's too dark. There we go. So you can kind of see it's a lot more well lit right now. There's still some wrinkles in the back, but as I was saying before, those will be blown out by the background a lot. And here's this big light that I'm using. So let's stop up. So this is a light from Limo Studio. This isn't actually my lamp, this is one of my friends, but I'm borrowing it for now because it works really, really well. And yeah, it's just a great light. So now it's lighting the scene here. And now I'm gonna place the subject on our background, and you guys can see how it looks with the background properly lighted and the subject properly lighted. So yeah, I'll just be placing necklaces right there in the middle, and we'll see how that lighting looks. Okay, so I turned on the brightness a lot, now it looks really disgusting, but here's our subject. We're just doing like a little necklace here. Probably can't see it very well, but there's that, and then it's just on the white background. So when we put this on, it should look like an infinite white background, and I'm actually going to move down the lights up here in my big LEDs a lot, because they're casting a little bit of shadow, and you can kind of see it. right there, there's some shadow from the top, which is not good. So I'm gonna put those on the side and hopefully that should improve it. Okay, so this pretty much fixed all of our background problems. What I ended up doing was moving this light right here closer to the subject, moving these down and more to the right side, so they're kind of lighting it from the side. And then I cleaned up the background a little bit because there's kind of some dog hair and stuff. But our end setup ended being 2 LED lights on the side, kind of like from right on the back, and then my main lamp or my key light just like right here, just right in the center, pointing down. The ideal situation would be in where you have a boom arm, and you basically have an arm coming from here up to the side, and just a light pointing straight down on it, going as bright as possible. So you can see, if I actually lifted this up, and I put this closer, you can see all the shadows go away entirely, because you're lighting directly from the top, and this is gonna act as like, almost like the sun on like a cloudy day, how everything's completely well lit and there's no shadows, and that will do the same thing. Unfortunately, I don't have a boom stand, so this will have to do, and in post you should be able to fix this pretty easily. So that looks pretty good. We're gonna go in and I'm gonna take some photos and we'll see how it looks, and then I'll change the lighting around if I need to change something, and if not, then we'll go right into post. And I'll show you guys how to post process these. So when I was taking the photos, I actually ended up using a flash. I bought this really cheap flash on Amazon probably like 7 or 8 months ago. It was cheap, I think it was like $15 to $16 or something, but it does the job. It's an external flash, and I used that to get rid of the shadows that were there already. So if you're having problems with shadows, I would recommend doing that. And if not, then this setup should work fine. Actually, I did the first few shots without the flash and it was working fine. But the flash really does help you just kind of get that nice white background feel with no shadows at all. So that's it for the shoot. Yeah, so here's the setup I used. It was pretty hard taking photos with it because of all the light stands were in the way, but I ended up using my 50mm, so 51.8, and I got some top shots and I got some side shots with it, and it was a perfect focal length because I didn't have to get in super close like I would have to with the 24. I also stopped down the shots a lot so that I didn't get that blurry bokeh in the background, because the necklaces and stuff were pretty long and I didn't want to get bokeh in the background. I wanted all to be nice and crisp. So I stopped down to about probably like 8 to 10 stops depending on the shot, and I was shooting at a pretty high ISO so I could still get that fast shutter speed so none of the shots would be blurry. But besides that, really, the shot was basically as I showed you guys. I set up exactly how I did it, with the exception of the flash. So if you guys have a flash, I'd recommend trying that out if you really want to get rid of all the shadows. It's probably not going to be necessary though. I just happened to have it on hand. I was like, why not? I'll try using the flash. So that's it for the actual photo taking part, and I'm going to clean up my room, get all the equipment back away, and we're going to go into Lightroom and Photoshop. We're going to clean up those white background photos so that they look really nice and spicy. See you there. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do with these photos is go into Lightroom and import them. So as you can see here, I took all these photos as raw photos, which means this import might take a little bit. And the good thing about raw photos, if you guys don't know what those are, is they allow you to adjust the values of shadows and brightness. You can crank up the shadows a lot, which means get a lot more detail from the darker spots, and you can just play around with the photo a lot more compared to a JPEG because there's a lot more data in there. It's like a raw image file. So it's going to be importing these right now. Might take a little bit, but we'll just start here, I guess. So here's one of them. You can see up in the corner here. This was at 2.8, but I still managed to get pretty much the whole scene sharp. But I know that there's a lot of better photos in here. So we're going to skip these. Blurry, blurry, blurry. So here you can see I've began stopping down. This is at 7.1. So these ones might actually be usable. They're all a little too bright. So this one right here looks pretty good. So I'm going to set the label to red by pressing the number 6 button. And for me, that's how I mark all my photos. So my photo system goes, I'll go through all the raw files first. I'll mark the ones that I want to use as 6. And then I'll go back through and I'll develop each one individually. So let's keep going. I want to get one top-down view. Sure, these all look a little blurry. I got one that was good enough. So, looks like I didn't get one that was really not blurry. Top-down view, so I'll choose the best one that I think I have. Which is probably going to be this one. and I'll just go through all these photos here, and I'll pick the ones that look good, and then we'll return. Okay, so I just went through and I got all the files ready to go. So now I want to sort by red by clicking this thing down here. And now it will only show me the photos that I marked as red, which are the photos I want to develop. So let's go here into the Develop tab. And look at these photos. So this one was the best one I had for this side view of this white bracelet. So I'm going to go in here and we're just going to bump the highlights a little bit here. Take down shadows. Take down or push up whites. Maybe take down highlights actually a little bit, because we want to get detail in the necklace itself, but maintain the white backdrop. That looks good right here. Now what you're going to want to do, and probably the most important thing when you're making these white backdrop photos, is to take a gradient filter, just go on each side, like this, and boost up the exposure as much as you can. So what this will do is this is going to blow out the sides, which means that it's going to be pure white. And that means that it's going to blend in with whatever medium that you're going to put it into, so the sides will fit in perfectly. That looks pretty good to me. There's, as usual, there's a lot more that you can do here. I could add some clarity, some vibrance, make some more detail, add some contrast. Cozy. Put a little S-curve in here. There's a lot more you can do here, but honestly, it's all pretty negligible at this point. Because the most important thing that you're trying to do here is get this blown out side background. So we're going to call that good for that one. Now the next photo we have here is the top down of this white bracelet. So what we're gonna want to do with this one is, because you can see there's some shadows right here, and those don't look so good. So we're gonna take up the shadows right here in Lightroom, and if we really want to go in, we can take our brush tool right here. You can do this either in Photoshop or in Lightroom. I'm just gonna do it in Lightroom just because it's easier, and you can actually go through and you can paint very precisely. I'm going to decrease feathering. You can just paint out. There. Take off this clarity. This brush. So you can just go in here and you can actually paint out where you want the white backdrop to be. As you can see, that doesn't look too good because it's a little too bright. So just gonna want to take this back to 0. We're just gonna want to bump up the shadows. So now, as you can see, when we're painting, it lessens that effect a little bit. Makes it a lot more blending to the rest of the image. There's a lot more that you can do here. You could go into Photoshop and you could individually make all the dark pixels brighter if you'd like to, but for me, I'm doing this for free, so I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on this. So we're just going to call that good. And you basically just want to go in for each photo and do that. Just crank up the highlights, crank up the whites, make sure that your sides are blown out by putting in a gradient filter. And that's it. Simple as that. The most important thing that you need to remember when doing this is to make sure that you add the gradient filter on the sides that blow out the exposure. And if you do that, honestly, there's a ton more you can do. You can make it go so many different ways, but if you just do that, your white backdrop photos will blend perfectly in the background of any paper or document that you put it into. And yeah, so there's a lot more you can do, but that's like bare minimum. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'll just have me going through the rest of these photos if you would like to watch me go in and edit them so that they all look good on the white backdrop. But that's it for me talking to you and actually narrating this. So I'm gonna say that we're done with this video. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure that you subscribe, like this video, Leave a comment if you enjoyed it, tell us what you like, and we'll try to incorporate that into future videos. If you didn't like this, tell us what you don't like and what you'd like in the future, and we'd love to incorporate that in and make sure our whole audience is pleased. That's it for this video. I'll see you guys next time. Caelin signing out.